You would have thought that the idea of a burger without the meat was a new phenomenon by all the media hype. I mean, who would have thought that soy burger all the kids were turning their noses up back in the day would be all the rage now? Hi, I'm Maria, otherwise known as the Fit Foodie. I'm a chef, holistic nutritionist, author, inventor, and mom. And I want to welcome you to my podcast. It's called Recipes for Your Best Life. And with every episode, I'm peeling back the onion on fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, and family. The truth is, you're the chef of your life. And for every important pillar, there's a great recipe worth sharing. So every week, we'll explore them together. Think of it as food for thought that you can really sink your teeth into. So join me, and let's squeeze the joy out of this life. Because you only get one. Can I get a fork, yeah? When I was in second grade attending PS 52 in Brooklyn, I remember standing in the lunch line with my tray in hand and hearing the kids behind me saying, "Those burgers aren't even meat. They're soy meat." And they meant they were substandard imitation fake meat. That was my first introduction to hearing about soybeans as a replacement for beef in a burger. And back then, they were used as fillers to stretch the beef and cut down on cost. You know, soy is an inexpensive plant protein. And I can imagine, when you're feeding hundreds of thousands of hungry kids at school lunch every day in inner city New York, it probably seemed like a really good idea. But the idea of a plant-based burger has never really been foreign to me. Being Egyptian, falafel is kind of our version of a plant-based burger. It's made with fava beans in Egypt, and those were our mainstay food. It's an inexpensive form of protein that offers a full range of essential amino acids, the building blocks of life, which is exactly why you would want to eat an animal protein in the first place. In fact, so many developing countries around the world have their own version of a plant-based burger. They can have all kinds of different ingredient combinations like lentils and potato and black beans and chickpeas and rice, and the list goes on and on and on. Because when meat is out of your financial reach or it's hard to find, there are a bazillion ways to fill your belly. And although indigenous cultures around the world have enjoyed plant-based patties or some variation on a plant-based protein as the main feature of the plate for eons, you would have thought that the idea of a burger without the meat was a new phenomenon by all the media hype. I mean, who would have thought that soy burger all the kids were turning their noses up back in the day would be all the rage now? I mean, national commercials, huge chains touting their versions of a meaty, non-meat burger. Mega bucks being raised to fund these burgeoning brands that are now household names, and stocks skyrocketing. But at the same time, it leaves a girl to question, is it really saving anyone's health and the health of the planet for that matter? So I'm about to break down the bowl here. Let me start by saying there's no question that eating more plant-based foods is a good thing. I mean, the undeniable merits of eating produce-rich diets, food that is filled with phytonutrients, fiber, and all of the yummy benefits that the rainbow of fruits and vegetables bring to us is key to overall health. I think everybody can agree with that. And it is better for the environment too. Just looking at beef requires 20 times more land and emits 20 times more greenhouse gases per gram of protein than common plant proteins. But I think there is a major difference between a veggie protein, or getting the majority of your protein and your phytonutrients from vegetables, and what I call pseudo meat. And that pseudo meat is where big business is booming. It's like the new gold rush right now. There are a lot of brands that have played in the plant-based sandbox for a while, and names like Gardein and Field Roast, who I met the founder, lovely person, and really came up with a great concept. Boca Burgers, Morningstar Farms, a company called Quorn, spelled Quorn, Tofurkey, the ubiquitous alternative to turkey at Thanksgiving is how I associate them. Eve's Veggie Burgers, they've been around for eons. Dr. Prager's, and the list goes on and on and on. They've been around. But right now, there are two mega players dominating the news, and they are Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. Their goal is to replicate the experience of meat with their products. Impossible Foods doesn't want you to bite into their burger and think anything but, this is meat. This is so close to meat, it's scary. And it's not surprising that there's mega money and big guns behind them, including Bill Gates, who's invested in both companies, which I think is super interesting. So from a financial perspective, just this past May 2019, Beyond Meat had the best IPO so far this year. And the day of its market debut, it surged over 160%. And as of now, it's up by more than 500%. They've made big deals. They're in Carl's Jr., Dunkin' Donuts, Del Taco, TGI Fridays, just to name a few. That's just as of today. And Impossible Foods products are now in about 10,000 restaurants, including Burger King. The ads for the new Whopper with Impossible Foods burger is everywhere, every time you turn on the television. And they're also in White Castle, the infamous Slider, and Red Robin. And soon they're coming to a grocery store near you if they haven't shown up already. And business is booming. I mean, U.S. retail sales of plant-based foods have grown double digits in the past year, according to a July report from a trade group called the Plant-Based Foods Association. And I've written about them in my trend reports. I mean, there is no question that having plant-based alternatives is a big wave of the food future. And in the next decade, it's assumed that sales will break the $140 billion ceiling. And it will take a good chunk out of the global meat industry. So the big question is, are these pseudo meats better for you than actual beef? Well, let's just look at it from a nutrient perspective. I want to break down the nutrient or nutrition profiles of some of the big players. So Impossible Burger. If you look at a 4-ounce Impossible Burger patty, it's about 240 calories. And this is all reported from their website. 240 calories, 14 grams of fat, and 8 grams is saturated fat, 370 milligrams of sodium, 19 grams of protein, 9 grams of carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber, and less than a gram of sugar, okay? The Beyond Burger patty is fairly similar in its nutrition profile. It's 250 calories for a 4-ounce patty, which is just 10 calories more than Impossible. It's 18 grams of fat, so 4 grams of fat more than Impossible, and less saturated fat with 6 grams. It's 390 milligrams of sodium, so just a touch more than the Impossible Burger. It's 20 grams of protein, so just 1 more gram of protein than the Impossible Burger. 3 grams of carbohydrates, so it's less in carbohydrates than the Impossible Burger, 2 grams of fiber, and 0 grams of sugar. Okay, so when I compare those to a 4-ounce ground beef patty that's 93% lean, okay, so considered lean, you're talking 219 calories, so it's less than both. You're talking 10.13 grams of fat, which is substantially less than both, and about half of the saturated fat of an Impossible Burger, so that's substantially less. 75 milligrams of sodium, which is a fraction of both of those items. It's got 0 grams of carbohydrates. So if you are worried about your carb intake, that's something to take into consideration. 0 grams compared to the 9 grams in the Impossible Burger and the 3 grams in the Beyond Burger. 0 grams of fiber and 0 grams of sugar. So just looking at the nutrient profile, the ground beef patty actually wins. Now, when you look at that compared to just a standard veggie patty, which a standard veggie patty is considered something that contains black beans, oats, kind of like that classic black bean burger recipe that contains 5 ingredients that's published, and I'll list it in the show notes so you can see exactly what's in there. That beats everything out. So that's 124 calories. It's 4 grams of fat. It's 398 milligrams of sodium. So this one has a little bit more sodium. It's 11 grams of protein. So it's a little bit less than the Impossible, but it's actually more than the ground beef patty. Or actually, no, I take that back. It's less than the ground beef patty. Okay, the ground beef patty has almost 30 grams of protein. I take that back. Now let's look at a regular ground beef patty that's 4 ounces. So comparable weight and 93% lean. So considered a lean burger. That contains 219 calories, so less than both of the pseudo meats. You've got about 10 grams of fat and 4.2 grams of saturated fat, which is about half of the Impossible Burger and far less than the Beyond Burger too. You've got 75 milligrams of sodium, which is a big, big difference. Something to keep in mind is anytime you've got a processed food, generally speaking, they're going to add sodium to keep the shelf life. So significantly, like a fifth or a sixth of the sodium of the other two. Almost 30 grams of protein, so a lot more than the other two as well. 0 grams of carbohydrates, so if you're watching your carbs, that's something to keep in mind. 0 grams of fiber and 0 grams of sugar. So nutritionally speaking, the ground beef patty is actually pretty far superior to the 2 plant-based options. Now, when it comes to a standard veggie patty, it is definitely beating out all of the categories. So it's 124 calories, a fraction of the calories, 4 grams of fat, 1 gram saturated, 398 milligrams of sodium, which, again, you've got sodium as an ingredient with a lot of processed products, anything that you would find that's shelf stable or frozen. So something to keep in mind unless you're making your own. 11 grams of protein, still a pretty substantial amount of protein. 10 grams of carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber, and less than a gram of sugar. So looking at the nutrition profile is important to us, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. When you look at the ingredients of some of the popular pseudo meats like Beyond Meat, they're touting the use of pea protein isolate. So using a pea protein as their main source of protein in their products is what they believe sets them apart, that it's soy free and it's non-GMO. So that is Beyond Meat's distinction in the marketplace. They're also using expeller pressed canola oil. They're using refined coconut oil, rice protein, and other natural flavors, including apple extract and beet juice extract for color. In the Impossible Foods burger,